Okay, here we go. All right, good morning and welcome, Williams College friends and family. My name is Christina Walsh and I'm the Dean for First Year Students. I think many of you have received communications from me in the past. I'm around all day if you see me. I would love it if you would introduce yourselves to me and we could have a few minutes and I can learn a little bit more about your student. That would be amazing. So we're so glad to see you here this morning, and that you've chosen to come and spend some time learning from our inspiring faculty who guide your students on this incredible journey of self-discovery and intellectual fireworks. Our professors come to class each day with the mission of guiding your students further along on that journey of discovery. And hopefully today with our panel, you'll get a taste of that experience. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce you to our panel and turn it over to them. Sarah LaLumia, Professor of Economics. We have Bernie Rhee, Associate Professor of English and Faculty Affiliate in Religion. And Mihai Stoicu, Professor of Mathematics. Let's give them a welcome.
Hi, I'm Sarah LaLumia from Economics, and it's a delight to see you here. I'll begin by saying I've been here for a while. This is my 19th year at Williams, and I just recently had the experience of saying, like, oh, when I got to Williams, and one of probably your students said to me, that was before I was born. So it's been a delightful time. I really just love my job. I would like you to begin by thinking of two numbers. Maybe you'll even write these numbers down. The first number that I would like you to think about is what is the student-faculty ratio at Williams? I think we describe this number a lot. I think it's available on the internet. Maybe you have an idea of what that number is. The other number that I would like you to write down is in this current semester, we have, in our largest class here at Williams, I would like you to write down the number of students you think are in that largest single class. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to write those two numbers down. And while you're thinking about that, I will say, as an economist, I teach classes at a variety of levels. I often teach an intro macro class, and that class typically has 40 students in it. Right now, I'm teaching an intermediate micro class. Each section of that class is nominally capped at, well, it depends semester to semester, but 25 or 30, and I have 34 in one section and 36 in the other section. So I want to come back to the numbers. What did you write down as the student-faculty ratio at Williams? Anybody? 4 to 1. 7 to 1. Okay, yes, there are classes that are 4 students, but in fact the student-faculty ratio is 7 to 1. Okay, and how about largest class at Williams? 60, 70, 150? I feel like an auctioneer here. Anybody higher? Our largest class is psychology, the intro psychology class, and it's at 183 this semester. So that's pretty different from 7. The classes that I teach are also not 7 students. I have never had a class as small as 7 students. In the pandemic, things were challenging and whatnot, and I had an online class of 8 students. It was great. So I wanted to start with these numbers because I wanted to say that there are a lot of different experiences in the classroom here. And I hope that your students have classes of 4 students or 7 or 8. They're all great. But maybe your student is taking a larger class. And I think all of us on stage have had the experience of teaching a larger class. And I want to say that there are a lot of things that can make these classes, I really believe this, very consistent with our ethos here at Williams of giving each student a lot of individualized attention and a lot of care, crafting of that student's learning experience. So I want to talk a little bit about things that I have done in my classes that help to deliver that experience. And I also have a little advice for you to give to your students about how they can have a great, well-crafted learning experience even in some bigger classes. Okay, so there are 3 things that I do a lot in my bigger classes. One, I've already demonstrated. I ask a lot of low-stakes questions. So I've asked you to do something here, and I hope that no one felt like the stakes were high in those questions. And here's what I mean by low-stakes questions. One, it doesn't take a lot of careful thought to construct your answer. I was just asking for a number. Sometimes my low-stake questions are, you think this variable is going to go up or down in this model? And it's easy for someone to sort of put together the content of an answer there. It also is something that maybe I don't even need a verbal answer from somebody, if it's up or down. Students have all kinds of creative hand signals that they use in my class to indicate, I think that variable is going up or down. Every so often I look at a student, I don't know, is Oak Sullivan's parents here? Oak, he has some creative symbols in class for what up or down means. But I like to be able to ask a low-stakes question there where a whole bunch of people could participate in answering that, and it gives people a minute to really think about what are we doing here? I can kind of look around and get a lot of different answers. The other thing that I think is important in a low-stakes question is a wrong answer is instructive. So it's low stakes because if you have the wrong number, great, this is a learning opportunity. I can say, oh, yes, your answer is right in these situations, or, oh, I love that you gave that answer because it gives us an opportunity to think about a common kind of pitfall in solving this kind of problem. So, you know, scattered throughout the class, even if I'm doing a lot of lecturing, I try to construct a class so there are a lot of moments for students to be engaged in answering these low-stakes questions. Second thing that I do is I try to facilitate student-to-student interaction. So students, I think, learn a lot from their faculty, and our faculty, like, we work hard to teach our students a lot, but boy, there are some smart, wonderful, well-informed, well-read students in our classes, and if one student can turn to the person next to them and say, like, ooh, you know, what do you know about that? There is just so much learning that happens student to student. And I think in the smaller classes and tutorials, of course they're going to be talking to each other, but in our bigger classes, I think we can do a lot, and we try to do a lot to get the students to learn from each other. One of my favorite ways to do this is to take advantage of what I call local expertise. So we solve a lot of problems in econ classes, and there are going to be problems that somebody just gets and is good at, and because there are a lot of opportunities for me to observe students in their problem solving, I can start to see, oh, Bernie is really good at finding the derivative of this kind of problem, and Mihai is really good at something else. And so I kind of take note of that, and then as we're going along, if I have an opportunity to see that some student would benefit from Bernie's expertise, I just love saying, oh, well, Bernie has expertise on that. You're going to turn to Bernie and learn from him. And I think everybody has their expertise, and as we go through the class, I get a lot of opportunities to see where each person's local expertise is, and when I start to model that, then I think students also kind of take ownership of that, and I'll hear students say, oh, I know how to solve this problem. I'm happy to talk with people around me about that one. Finally, I'll say that I try hard to convey that the in-class experience is just one part of the package. And here's where I have some advice slash plea for help for you. As you are talking to your students here, I think if you can remind them what happens in our scheduled 75-minute twice-a-week classes, that is important. And students are coming and should come and learn a lot there, and that is just part of what we offer. So in my classes, we also have problem-solving sessions. They might be called TA sessions. We have great teaching assistants who are there helping our students learn, people who have taken the class before and are good at it. But I show up to TA sessions too, and I'm part of the problem-solving. In some intro classes that I teach, I do something called a quasi-tutorial. You've probably heard of tutorials. In a 40-person intro class, I can't run it as a tutorial. But once a semester, I can get students in small groups, maybe 4, to come back to the 4-to-1 ratio, and they've read a paper, an econ paper that applies some concept we've talked about in class to something going on in the world that uses some research. We come into my office and we have an hour-long discussion of that paper, and that's part of the class. I have several of those over the semester. Each student can sign up for more than one if that student wants. Each student has to sign up for one, but it means that every student has been in my office at some point in the semester for an hour-long discussion of a real economics paper. That's not a tutorial for sure, but it gives students a little bit of that, I think, Williams education. I will end with an analogy here. And this comes back to the fact that our scheduled class time is only part of the package. Think about an airline flight, a long flight somewhere. Suppose you're going Boston to San Francisco. I think about our class as like a long airline flight. We're all going to get on that plane. We're all starting in Boston. We're going to get to San Francisco. But you could be in like a middle seat back in coach. You're going to get to San Francisco. But you could be up in first class. You could have free snacks. You could go to the lounge in the airport afterwards. I want all of my students to upgrade to first class. Come to office hours, come to the extra sessions, and I think that's the way to upgrade that experience. All right, so I'll end there and pass it over to Bernie. Oh, you have your own.
Good morning, everyone. So I think I want to start by just assuming that professors who teach at Williams know a lot and are skilled at communicating that knowledge. You know, I think when a student comes to Williams, that's what they expect, and I think that's what they get. I think one of the things that makes Williams special is that here you get something, I think, much more than that, which is, I mean, because you can get content, you can get skills, you can get knowledge at so many different schools, you know. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about teaching here is how so many of my colleagues care not just about transmitting content, knowledge, skills, but also accompanying our students on a journey of self-reflection so they understand for themselves, in themselves, why what they're doing matters. So they also have a clear sense of why, or in what way they would like to bring what they learn at Williams into the world, as citizens, as human beings, as parents, as friends. And that requires a kind of reflection that goes beyond simply just learning this or that fact, learning this or that technique. Right? And so what I want to talk about in the few minutes I have is what some people in academia have called contemplative education. A way of approaching education that actually encourages students to contemplate, reflect upon the meaning of what they are learning rather than just the substance or the content of what they're learning. And to think about their own values, think about how what they're learning connects to their own lives, their own values, their priorities. And in the course of that, maybe to also change, to develop, to grow their own sense of priorities and values and purpose. Because I think, you know, humans have shown throughout history that we are very good at acquiring power over nature, right, over the world, right, and we have not shown such a good talent for always implementing that power well, right. So I think what we want is for students who graduate from Williams, not just to be able to do many things well and skillfully, but to know how to do those things in the service of the world, in the service of others, right? And that requires a kind of reflection that goes beyond just simply learning ideas, right? It's not just about learning this or that ethical principle, but really sort of how can I relate to that person? How can I make that alive in my own life? So, I mean, we're going to have a lot of time for Q&A. Don't worry, this is not a morning where we're going to talk at you for a long time. Partly what we're doing is just we're setting the stage so that we have some things to chew on together, you know. So you can ask anything you want about how literature is actually taught, and you know that's the content stuff. Like, I'm totally into that. Okay, but in a way, what I want to, you know, what I'm focusing on is something that I think maybe kind of underlies that transmission of content and gives it its meaningfulness for the students. Okay, so I mean, I think to explain why I'm even taking this tack, I want to just share a little bit about my own personal history, which is that I was a very high-achieving, hard-working student when I was young, when I was a teenager. Almost like a stereotypical immigrant story. My family moved to the United States from Korea when I was very young, and really it was all about economic opportunity. And all we focused on in the family was about achievement in school and achievement in professional life, right? That was the goal of everything. And, for all sorts of reasons, we didn't really talk about things like meaning or purpose. It was just like, just do it, just get it done, okay? I think it's a very common story for a lot of people. In any case, when I was a junior in high school and really starting to feel very deeply the kind of stress and pressure that approach to life sort of often produces, and I see in a lot of students I teach at Williams, it started to feel unsustainable for me. I'd done so well, and yet everything felt so, I just put it as like kind of pointless. I didn't actually understand why I was doing what I was doing. I had lost the connection between myself and the activities I was engaging in the world. And I ended up dropping out of high school. I never finished high school, okay? And so this is probably an unusual story for Williams professors, right? And yet somehow I'm here. And it's not because I forged my high school diploma, okay? That would be actually a good story, but no, that's not it. It's not that interesting. In any case, my parents freaked out, you can imagine, right? It did not compute that I would not be going to college. And in any case, I don't want to bore you with the details of it, but when I was 18, I ended up moving to a Zen Buddhist monastery for 3 years. And one of the other hats I wear now is I'm also a Zen teacher, along with being a professor at Williams. And after 3 years at the monastery, suddenly I could not wait to get back to school. Just the idea of learning seemed so just inherently interesting and fun. While like 3 years before, I couldn't wait to get out because of stress and felt overwhelming. And partly, underlying the stress was meaninglessness. I think we all know what it's like to work really hard at something where you don't quite understand what the point is, right? If you understand what the point is, you're willing to work your ass off, right? If you really care about it. But if you don't, then it starts to wear very deeply at you, right? And that's where I was at. And after 3 years, I suddenly realized, what could be more wonderful and luxurious in life than the opportunity to learn, right? And so I went back to school, and because of that newfound attitude, of course school was easy. It was fun. It's like I just threw myself into it. I couldn't imagine something more wonderful than this opportunity to just study and think and write and learn. And that's how I ended up in this chair, right? Because when I had the attitude, it just felt like I wasn't doing it for to meet some kind of external metric. I wasn't doing it to meet someone else's expectations of what I should do or be. I was doing it for myself, and for that reason, I excelled at what I was doing. Okay. Now, the students you're connected to at Williams probably don't have a story like mine. It's very hard to get into Williams if you made the kind of quote-unquote mistakes that I did, though I would never exchange the story I had for some other. Because in a way, it got me where I am in so many different ways, right? But, so the students I teach at Williams are so put together, so competent. Very few of them have really gone off the rails in any significant way, because it is hard to make it through the admissions gauntlet. But that thing that makes them so special and accomplished can also actually pose a problem once they get here, which is that they have become so accustomed to always doing well, doing what is expected of them, that in a very different way, they can sometimes lose touch in the way that I did with why they're doing it for themselves, why it matters to them. They're very good at jumping through hoops. They're very good at doing what their teachers expect of them. And yet, they can sometimes lose touch with why they're doing it for themselves. And so over the year, I've been here over 20 years, and I saw that over and over again in my students. And it would come out in many different ways. It would sometimes come out in the context of my English teaching in papers that were maybe spotless and polished, but had no life in them. They could do what they were supposed to do and do it well. I remember one time I gave a student an A, and I said, this is like a perfect paper. It's also incredibly boring. Like there is no passion in this. Like, where is the energy? By saying, I'm going to give you credit for doing a good job, but I want to ask a deeper question. Like, can you write about something that you actually care about, right? And sometimes it comes across in ways that actually more closely resemble my story. Like, they've made it here, they've made it this far, but they start to get like their little 20-year-old versions of midlife crises, where they start to wonder like, God, and they start to have trouble keeping it together. you know. And we've all heard about the mental health crisis among college-age students, right? And I think it's a real thing, but I actually think it may be slightly a misnomer to call it a mental health crisis, because I think it's broader than that. I mean, what manifests as a quote-unquote mental health issue may actually be a deeper issue about meaning and purpose that I'm talking about. Because of course, it's going to be hard to do your work and keep up, and it's going to hard to feel like you're keeping things together if you no longer are in contact with that kind of sense of purpose. And that might manifest as attention deficit. That might manifest as anxiety disorder. But maybe there's a deeper issue there, right? And also, of course, they're living in a world. Our students, our children, right, are living in a world in which there's so many like urgent crises, like, you know, climate change, you know, political unrest, all this. So how is that also going to wear? So I just mean, like, I think it's really broad, and so I think this kind of shorthand term, mental health crisis, is perhaps useful but potentially misleading, you know. And I think that professors can play a role in helping students navigate this, because it's not simply something that's for IWS, Integrative Wellbeing Services, deal with. You know, it's not just a mental health issue. If it's a question of meaning, then who is better placed to help them find meaning than their professors, with whom they spend more time than anyone else, right? They do our work more than do anything else. And so can we make our work meaningful? Right? Can we make our classes meaningful in that deeper way? Like, we're giving them content, we're giving them knowledge, we're giving them skills that will give them careers, but can we help them find meaning in not only life here, but also meaning beyond Williams, in their careers, in their vocations, in their families, etc. Right? So I have done things in some of my classes in recent years to help them to give them some tools to find that kind of meaning. And it takes a lot of different forms. Like, one form you may be really familiar with is the practice of free writing. And if you actually don't know this, I actually encourage you guys to try this. It's a really simple and powerful technique, which is you sit down with a blank piece of paper. You could also do it with a blank Word document, okay? And you just write for, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes on some kind of, maybe it could be nothing, just like just free write totally, or it could be a prompt. It could be like, you know, I remember, and just think about all the things you remember and see what comes up. Or it could be like an encounter you had recently with a person that was really difficult, and you could start writing about that, and then just see what comes up. And the one rule is, do not stop writing. Do not stop that pen moving. Do not stop the fingers typing. If you're typing on a computer, which I do because my handwriting's so terrible, dim the screen. You can't even see the screen. Do not proofread. Do not worry about syntax. Do not worry about punctuation. Right? Just write. And the reason this is so powerful is because it starts to blow through the internal editor. The part of us that says, "Oh, that's a stupid idea," or "I shouldn't be saying that," or "No, wait, that's a weird thing to say," you know, and just blows through all that, and you start to get in touch with your deeper, genuine thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about whatever it is you may be writing about. And of course, that is where any kind of reorientation of values and purpose needs to start. Like, what do you actually think and feel about something? And when you've spent 18 years being trained to say certain things because they will get rewarded by your teachers, you can start to lose touch with what you actually think about things. Like, what do I actually think about this book? I don't know, but I know I got to write this 5-paragraph essay. It's got to have this structure. It's got to have this kind of claim, right? And then, you know, what do you actually think? Free writing can help you get in touch with that. Okay, another technique I've used, and some of my classes, because I've started to integrate some of my experience with Buddhism into academic classes, where I introduce students to the sort of the way that Buddhism affected American literature and culture, and the effect has been profound. And I just like sneak in 5 to 10 minutes of meditation practice at the beginning, right? And as a experiential component of the learning. And that also has been really interesting for students, because it's like free writing. You're just sitting with your experience, you're sitting with your present moment experience, and you start to get in touch in a very deep way with what it is that you actually are feeling, what it is that you're actually thinking. And out of that, students start to slowly get in touch with, what really matters to me? What do I really want to do when I graduate? What major do I really want to pursue? What are the things that really excite me rather than what is it that I think I should be doing? You know. So I want to just read 2 short remarks by students I've taught in classes like these, because, you know, it's one thing to hear from me, but I want you to hear it in the voices of students who are very much like your children, your friends, your grandchildren, okay, who have gone through Williams. The first is I'm using a pseudonym to protect confidentiality, but I'm going to call him Matthew. He graduated in 2023, okay? And I want to make clear, Matthew was one of our highest achieving students. You know, these questions that I'm talking about, meaning, anxiety, purpose, they don't just affect students who are struggling, quote unquote struggling, and students do struggle at Williams, but sometimes they affect just as deeply the students who are most high flying, most high achieving, right? Matthew was Phi Beta Kappa, and inducted into Phi Beta Kappa junior year. He went to the Oxford program, which is one of our most selective study abroad programs. He got highest honors in his major, and he's now at Duke Law School, okay? So, by all external metrics, his life is going spectacularly well. But his senior year, before he graduated, he was starting to wonder, like, what am I doing all this for? You know, I don't actually like really remember, like why I set on this path. And so I asked these students in this class to respond to a little bit of text that they read for the night before, and I would share some of these responses with the others. So I'd read them as part of my lectures in this class, okay? So the quote he picked from the reading we did was, while we provide information and help students modify behavior, higher education has moved largely away from helping students discover and develop their deepest purpose. The last reading we did in this class was about contemplative education, you know, the practice of bringing contemplative practices into educational settings like this one. All right. And I think actually Williams is not like the kind of school that this writer is describing. I think we have not moved away from helping students discover their deepest purpose. And that's what I'm talking about this morning. And I'm not the only one who does this. Many, many colleagues do this, including the ones who are sitting up here with me, right? But this student wrote, reflecting on this quote in preparation for our last class meeting this semester, I'm reminded of what drew me to this class in the first place. For the last few years, I felt that something has been missing from my education. Constant pressures to achieve results and compete for prestigious jobs can distract from the process of learning, making me question what I'm really doing all this for. I'm so grateful for this class and these discussion posts for allowing me to see that I'm not alone in this feeling, providing me with new contemplative practices and frameworks that are helping me change my relationship to my education and reconnect with the values that I find most important. Right? And so I think the thing is, all of our students want this. They don't just want the degree that gives them a ticket to a good job, though that is nice, and Williams gives them that. Okay, I'm not gonna minimize the importance of that. I think that's a good baseline, but they want more, and I think we want to give them more. We want to give them the sense that what they're doing has a deep purposefulness to it, that something they can connect to, right? All of our students want it, but they need to be given time and a kind of holding space, a framework in which to discover that for themselves. And I think they need classes where they're just getting pure content. You know, this is not going to happen in every class, and it shouldn't happen in every class, right? Some classes, like, it makes no sense to do this in macroeconomics. Like, you just learn macroeconomics, okay? You got to do that well. But can you have another classroom experience that gives you a sense of why that macroeconomic experience matters to you and why you might make a meaningful life out of that learning experience, right? So I think what Williams does really well is it kind of has many different kinds of classes where you're going to get hardcore content, and you're going to know it so well, and you can be ready to go right into profession or to graduate school, and you're going to get other kinds of classes where you're given opportunities to reflect deeply on the purpose of your education as a whole. All right. I said I was going to read two, but for the sake of time, I'm going to stop here, okay? And we can talk more about this if we want in the Q&A. Okay, so thank you, and it's nice to see you all here.
Hello. I am professor of mathematics. I've been at Williams this is my 21st year of teaching at Williams, so Bernie and I came the same year. And I will change gears quite a bit. I would like to tell you about mathematics in the age of AI. In the last 2-3 years, we've all witnessed this appearance in our lives of what we call generative AI. So these platforms like ChatGPT by OpenAI, maybe you've encountered Gemini by Google, or I would say Copilot by Microsoft, Claude by Anthropic. There's quite a few, and they do different things, and they are good at some things and not so good at other things. One of my thesis students introduced me to DeepSeek, which is surprisingly good at certain things in mathematics. So it's clearly this is happening around us, and I would like to tell you how it's impacting mathematics as far as learning, teaching, and research goes. First, I would like to tell you, just to try to answer, how good are these platforms? How good is ChatGPT, for example, at mathematics? And I would like to tell you that it's shockingly good. So, and I'll give you two reasons, or two points of reference. Graduate school in mathematics starts with graduate classes, and at some point, all the graduate students take qualifying exams in the major areas of mathematics. And at this point, pretty much any of these platforms perfectly solves the qualifying exams in any field of mathematics. So that's the level. And one might say, yes, those are questions related to current textbooks, graduate level textbooks in mathematics. So these platforms have learned from these books, and of course these platforms can solve questions based on this material. But I also want to point out this year, for the first time, actually Gemini competed in the International Mathematics Olympiad. So IMO, that's the holy grail of problem solving, because this is a competition for high school students. So the mathematics is at the high school level and requires incredible creativity and effort, mathematical effort, so to solve those problems. So this year, a version of Gemini competed in the International Math Olympiad and scored 35 points out of 42, which corresponded to the gold medal. So to have a computer getting gold medal at the International Math Olympiad, that is giving everyone pause. So, in the same amount of time that everyone had, 4 hours and 30 minutes, this computer solved 5 of the 6 questions that required extreme creativity and ingenuity. So that's where we are with the level of these platforms as far as mathematics goes. But I would like to tell you at Williams, so in terms of learning, in terms of teaching, and the research we do with students, so as far as learning goes, I would say that clearly it's here. This week we had an article in the Williams Record, the college newspaper. There was a survey, and 3 out of 4 students use some type of platform on a daily, weekly basis. So clearly students are using it. I am witnessing students using it. My thesis students are using it, and I'll tell you a little bit more in what ways. So it's absolutely here. And I would say, in my opinion, it's a great partner in learning with 2 major flaws. It's sycophantic and it's unhinged. So let me tell you, sycophantic, many of you have experienced this. You ask a question, a great question, carry on, amazing, keep doing this. So that is encouraging, but not necessarily good all the time. So this behavior is not ideal as a partner in thought. So that's one aspect. And then I also want to talk about the unhinged aspect of these platforms that I'm sure all of us have heard of ChatGPT hallucinating. So after a while, some questions are so creative that become bizarre or like maybe too far on that side. So keep this, these are the 2 major flaws that I identified. On the other hand, it's a great partner in learning. when learning, say, college-level mathematics, it provides step-by-step solutions, step-by-step lines of reasoning, customizes the answers. Some students benefit more from concrete examples. Some students benefit more from theoretical approaches. So it's truly a fabulous partner in assisting learning. And I think that's a very good aspect. On the other hand, the interaction between a student and the platform does not, in my opinion, that is not true learning of mathematics. And this is what I tell students, that for the true learning of mathematics, what is necessary is to engage with a mathematical problem, question, and to write a solution or a computation from the beginning to the end in a continuous line of reasoning and derivation that is independent from other sources. And students seem to understand this, the importance, and the way I communicate this is I expect to wrap your mind around the concepts and internalize them. And so while these platforms are very good for engaging with the material and accessing resources, the internalizing aspect still needs to be done by the student. And that takes me to teaching. So as far as teaching in the age of AI, I have to be very mindful of the critical reasoning aspect of teaching and learning. So because so a platform like ChatGPT will always provide answers. Some are good, some are very good, some are dubious. So the student needs to be able to discern and decide what is useful and what is not, and have a critical approach to what is provided by the platform. And so in this day and age, I think liberal arts education, mathematics becomes even more important when information is so easily accessible to discern what is good, what is not so good, and how to use it. And so I wrote here that as far as teaching goes, for me, it's a great platform because it helps me with lesson planning, finding references, examples, customized assignments, but it's great partner, but sycophantic and unhinged. So that applies to the feedback that is given to me as a teacher when I plan my lectures. And finally, I want to tell you about research. So certainly, we have now this partner in thought, very able, very capable, accessing resources. And how is this impacting research in mathematics? I have to tell you that I witnessed my thesis students using different platforms in brilliant ways. And this gives them access to references, papers, articles, for example, one can play with a concept and ask the AI platform to explain a concept and to engage deeply with a concept. So there are very good ways of using these generative AI platforms. Probably the most beneficial way, which I see students doing, and I'm trying to keep up and learn from them, is in mathematics we try to test our conjectures and run numerical simulations to figure out what is true before we proceed on proving facts. And now this used to take weeks of exploration, and with these platforms, they're very good at generating software, generating code that can be used to test mathematical conjectures. It's not great at proving new research. It's not yet there in terms of creativity required. Who knows what the future has in store for us, and as far as research goes. The common kind of agreement among mathematicians is that the level, as far as research goes, the level of the of these generative AI platforms is like like an average graduate student. So that would be the level in terms of creativity with research in mathematics. So, and as far as the future, I would say that I'm trying to keep up with my students who are getting very good at using these platforms. I try to support them in the best way I can along the way. I'm aware of the additional pieces that need to be communicated to students, like this aspect of critical thinking and putting a question mark always before accepting an answer from some of these platforms. But it is becoming increasingly clear that this will be something that will be permanent in their lives, and I'm making an effort to assist them as they learn mathematics. So thank you.
Thank you, Professors Ree, LaLumia, and Stoichiu. We're not quite done yet, because now you get to be the student and ask these brilliant professors your questions. Both myself and Rachel Buchancy, the Associate Dean of Students, will be coming around in the audience with microphones, and we'll start that just now. Thank you.
There was some up here, Rachel.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I guess hearing all three of you, my question is really about time. One, how do students carve out that time to have that contemplative thinking and putting the I into their work? And then I think your approach is so pragmatic with AI and not demonizing it entirely. But when a student is working and they're in a time crunch, and that balance between their thinking and deferring to the machine thinking, how do they make sure that they don't tip towards deferring too much to the machine in time crunches? And time, how do they have time to do that contemplation? Thank you.
So I think that time is such an important issue for Williams students. And I think that, just on the second part of your question, I think most honor code violations happen because people are crunched for time. Not because they feel good about taking shortcuts, or, it's that they're just stressed, right? And they'll do things that are not wise when they feel stressed. So, that's where I think good conversations with family, but also with advisors and professors can be really important, where I'm working with first-year advisees this year, and I'm asking them, do you really need to do all those things that you are doing? When they list out all the different activities that they're doing on top of their classes, and I'm thinking, where is there time to breathe? Where is there time to think? And actually, it's not even just that. It's and this is one of the things about the way that they probably had to do a lot of extracurriculars to get into Williams in the first place, and they become very used to being constantly programmed. And I think one of the most important things that can happen for a Williams student when they get here is a little bit of unlearning, a little bit of deprogramming, where they realize they don't actually have to do that, necessarily to succeed here or at the next level. And then, in fact, they might do better by going deeper into the few things they focus on rather than trying to spread themselves thin over all these things. So the students have some agency over this. They don't always feel like they have the agency. It's interesting to hear how often they feel like they need to do all these things. But they have more choices than they realize, but they sometimes need guidance in coming to those places where they can make that decision and be almost given permission to maybe the activity you don't need to do, focus on these other things you clearly care more about. And then the last thing I'll say is, I think even given all of that, time is scarce. They are busy here. And it's part of what they came here for an intense, rigorous education, right? So I think it is one of the reasons why it can be valuable to have courses where they are given opportunities in a kind of required setting, where like it's time you have to use to engage in some of the kind of reflections that I'm talking about. Because otherwise I had students who took my meditation class because they said, if I don't have to go to class and do this, I won't do it otherwise, So anyway, yeah, there's more to be said, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you. This is indeed, students at Williams are committed to so many activities, and time it becomes a huge commodity. As far as, for example, in a time crunch, a student delegating some of the work to, say, generative AI, yes, that could happen. My role, I see as educator, is to emphasize the importance of a critical engagement with material produced by, let's say, such a platform. And so to explain, convince the student that the true learning is deeply engaging with those ideas and internalizing those ideas. I don't think I can say, yeah, if you're truly pressed for time, stay away from these platforms. They are there. We have to accept that human nature is to maybe try to find ways to find the solutions, the answers, and so on. But that's not the learning. True learning is deeply engaging with the material. And my role as an educator is to convince the student that that's what they need, that's what they will benefit from in their professional life, in their life in general. And so that's where I think my contribution needs to go. So my involvement and my my job, in essence, is to convince the student that critical thinking is the most important thing.
Maybe can I say one more thing? I think AI is scary. It's powerful. I mean, it's a lot of things. Okay, but I think it is actually a really good opportunity for higher education as a whole. It is the moment when we need to make clear why learning matters. If it is simply about the production of an outcome or a product, then there's no reason not to take the most quick and efficient route, right? And so I think higher ed has been able to ride for a long time on the assumption that everyone just knew why learning mattered and we just teach the stuff. But now students need to have some really deep metacritical reflections on why learning itself is important. And so that they don't take these shortcuts that Mihai is talking about, right? And so I think it's the onus is on us as teachers to always make clear why the process and the human side of that process is important. So yeah, anyway, it's a scary thing for higher ed, but also a moment of great opportunity. And if we don't take this up, then what are we good for? Yeah.
Sorry to keep talking about AI, but sort of turning it upside down. Our daughter loves math and thinks she may want to major in math, but so far she has been kind of pretty anti-AI for various reasons. And I worry that because she's so in love with deep thinking and personal insight that she's going to reject the value of these AI tools and not use them to an appropriate advantage, and that will somehow, she'll be at a disadvantage in learning how to proceed in the world in the presence of this stuff, which is not going to go away. So I wonder if you have any advice on what we might tell her.
Thank you very much. That's exactly one of the challenges that we're facing. Is am I falling behind if I don't keep up with the trend? If everyone else is using these tools, I'd better not fall behind. There's this real pressure, and I don't think I have a clean answer for this question. It is a conundrum that we're all facing. Who's getting very good at using these platforms and getting ahead in various ways, and who's sticking to the old ways, and trying to do it in a deep way, old-fashioned way. I guess time will tell. It's so regarding the question about, say, a student who's passionate about math and wants to learn it deeply in a, say, more traditional way without engaging the platforms. I think, to be honest, this is how I learn math, and I think that is the right way. And I actually celebrate that, and I think in the long term, that is perhaps the cleanest, safest way of deeply learning mathematics. I guess time will tell. I don't. My ideal thought would be that students, as they learn mathematics in college, will engage in more or less the old-fashioned ways, like, as I said, wrap your mind around the concept, internalize it, have it almost at your fingertips. Almost, I tell students, makes me maybe sometimes unpopular. I teach probability this semester, and we talk about the normal distribution, the Poisson distribution, and there's some formulas that are somewhat unpleasant, and I tell students, try to memorize those formulas. It's actually, once you memorize them, they become part of your internal knowledge, and don't shy away from memorization. That will help you solve problem quickly and own that topic. And so that's almost opposite of using these platforms, which will have all the information at your fingertips. So I myself struggle a bit, but I think my vision right now, my view is that I would like students, I think, to learn undergraduate mathematics in the old-fashioned way, and then once they know and they say they have full knowledge of what a proof is, how to construct their own proofs, then they can employ additional tools.
Hello.
So one more AI add-on question. I think as I consider this process in higher education, it comes down to how we then evaluate students who are potentially using this new technique to get the answer correct. And the challenge as an educator seems to be, how do you change the evaluation metrics such that using AI or not using AI becomes less relevant, and the critical thinking that the student's doing is what matters. And I'm wondering if you have any concrete examples of that, because I think that's fascinating and super challenging as an educator. So would love to hear any of your thoughts, or even those that you've heard from your fellow educators. But
Well, I'll say one thing about this. I think that in-person evaluation is a way to respond in this particular situation. In-person evaluation, which is offering an opportunity to observe the deep learning, the deep understanding that a student might have arrived at through various different routes. So maybe that student has arrived at the deep understanding through first engaging with a platform and saying, let me use this as a thought partner and let me think critically, just as Mihai was talking about. Or maybe the student is responding in the way of your daughter, and the student has not engaged with AI at any point in that deep learning process, but has come to a deep understanding. And then in that in-person evaluation, maybe that looks like, an oral exam in front of the chalkboard where students are solving some problems and they're demonstrating behavior that they have practiced with AI, or demonstrating behavior that they've practiced with their friends in one of the study rooms in Sawyer.
Yeah, there are many people here thinking about this exact question. Many more in-class exams are being given. Blue books are coming back. Oral exams are coming back. And all, I think, in the wake of exactly this issue. I'll also say that, I heard stories recently about investment banks and finance companies that realized that many of the top candidates they'd hired only did as well as they did in the interview stages because of the AI assistance, and actually are laying some of them off, even before the first year, because they said they're just useless without this help. And so they are also thinking about different forms of assessment. They may start assessing candidates without the ability to use AI, because they want to see, like, can you actually think on your own? Because anyone who can think on their own can have that thinking enhanced with tools. But if you don't have that basic thinking, so I think any student who learns the way Mihai is talking about is going to be a better mathematician than one who can only do it with assistance. And that goes for all the disciplines, I think, that we work in.
Yeah, and if I may add one thing, so I had conversations with students even this semester after the first midterm, and so of course these platforms are here. Students are using them to engage with the questions that I asked them to do in the homework. The exam is in person, in class, closed book, closed notes, and so students are asking me, how do I know that I'm ready for the exam? How do I know that I am at a level of I know the subject well enough to do well in the exam? And an anecdote that a former colleague of mine, Professor Frank Morgan, told me many years ago. He was one of my mentors here in the mathematics department. And so the advice that I give students that I learned from Frank Morgan is that we want the students to do some homework problems, so certain types of questions, that this type of math question, this type of word problem, and so say the student struggles with it, uses maybe the platform to get ideas and produces a solution. And then I tell the student that's not enough. You have to be able to take a blank piece of paper and pretend that you see the question for the first time. And with what you know, write the solution from the beginning to the end. And if you get stuck at some point, celebrate, because that means that you identify a place where you have to study harder. Go back to the platform, go back to the textbook notes, study more exactly that piece that where you got stuck. And then go back to the piece of paper and then throw it away and start with a blank piece of paper, pretend that you see the question for the first time, start writing the solution from the beginning to the end. Hopefully you get stuck somewhere else, and then that's another opportunity. So keep repeating this process until, this is what I was saying earlier, you internalize the concepts, the definitions, the theory, the method, and that becomes your own. Of course, you can use the platform to learn the subject, but then to make it your own, this is how you do it.
Thank you for your talks this morning. The only way this is going to be an AI question is if you tell me that AI is the answer. So, little change of subject. You know, one of the great gifts of Williams College, I observe, is the freedom students have for their first 2 years to explore anything they want to explore. I mean, my 3 kids were doing the DJ thing this morning because a slot opened up. And so they ran off to have fun. And certainly no less true in the classroom. And while some come here with a fairly definite idea of where this is going for them, perhaps their math interests, or, you know, a lot of our kids are showing up having succeeded in high school, but without any clear idea of where this is leading. And my question is, are there methodologies that you employ in the classroom to help students who really don't know what they're going to declare at the end of their sophomore year, but which in the classroom you're helping them to discern certain areas of giftedness, and acknowledging that we're all caught in this utilitarian versus transformational view of education. So I don't mean this in a utilitarian sense, but are there tools that you use to help students discern where those areas of giftedness and transformation live within them?
Well, I think that kind of work is definitely done by faculty, but not necessarily in the classroom. I think it's done in all those conversations we have with students outside the classroom, in our office hours and advising meetings. So I mean, in the class, I mean, it obviously can happen in the classroom when a student just comes alive because they love this subject, and that's a signal, right? That's like there's some that tells the student that I am just drawn to this. I'm drawn to this way of thinking, this subject area, whatever. But for all of us, I think a lot of our conversations with students are like, "What class are you taking? You know, what's the coolest thing you learned this last semester? Like, what are you looking forward to doing next semester?" And just out of that, I think it's not even, I don't ever think of myself as guiding students to any particular like decision. It's almost giving them the ability to just voice their own interests and then it starts to become clearer to them as they're in conversation with people around them that, wow, like, this is what I'm excited to take. Like, I'm good at this, but this is the thing that's actually difficult and really exciting to me, and that's what I want to do, you know? So I've had I think all of us have had these conversations where students just realize over the course of the first 2 years, through taking a wide variety of classes, that, oh, there are certain things that are, and they might surprise themselves. They might have thought they're coming in for pre-med, and they realize that they really want to do history, or vice versa, you know. So it's in the air, it's all over the place, but I wouldn't say there's a method or particular technique or particular kind of thing we do. It is just the way that mentoring permeates our relationships with our students everywhere, yeah, from the first moment we meet them. And it may not be a satisfying answer, but it's definitely always on our mind of the goal of helping students discover what it is they actually want to do, yeah.
I'll add two things. How do we help students discern that? I think something I love about Williams is that it's possible to get a very holistic view of a student. So we see the students in our classrooms, and then we see the students walking down Spring Street, and we have a conversation with them, and we learn, oh, you know, you play the cello? Oh, I was actually planning to go to Berkshire Symphony. And there are so many opportunities around for professors to know more about a student than just what we see in the classroom. And it is really the adding up of all of those little moments where we can say, oh, you seemed really excited as you were talking about, you know, the art project, and you invited me to your art studio show. Oh, I can see how that creativity is also evident here in the work that you're doing in my economics class. And I think that the students get an opportunity to see us as holistic people as well, and say, oh, you know, even though you're an economics professor, you have this interest, and I think it's that 360-degree view that gives us those opportunities. The other thing that I will say is that something that might be a new idea to students is that the things they might be really deeply good at are not necessarily things that come easily. And this idea that what do you want to struggle with? What are you, it's not coming easily, but you keep going back to it because it just calls to you. That might be the thing that you're actually really good at and meant to do. So being good at something doesn't mean, oh, it comes quickly to you, but that it's something you want to invest your time in. And some people have had the opportunity to have that kind of experience before they get to college, but our students are so high achieving, as you know. Maybe everything has come pretty easily to them before they get here, and acknowledging that struggle can be a sign of a real aptitude for something.
Thank you. I just want to add, very much in line with what Sarah and Bernie mentioned, in office hours, and we have, this is a fantastic thing at Williams, we have lots of opportunities to interact with students in office hours, and my question is, how does math fit into your life plan? So when I have a chance to interact with a student, I always ask that question, and that gets the student thinking about what they might want to do, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll major in math, but it's an invitation to think of what they're good, and opens the conversation. So we do have those conversations in office hours, and more than in the classroom. In classroom, probably rarely I say, well, if you want to be an investment banker, this is the kind of math that you need, but not much more than that. So, yeah.
Hi, thank you very much for your time today. I'm curious if you've had returning students come back to you and say, gee, I really regret not doing this, or, students who really wish they had done something differently, and looking back and saying, God, I wish, had I done it again, I would have done this, I would have done something differently. Just curious to hear, students who wish something may have been done differently when they were here at Williams.
Yes, we have returning students come back a lot. That's a wonderful thing about this. Students come back both during their time here, like you teach a person in the first year and the person comes back in the senior year, but also alums come back. And I definitely hear far more positive things than regrets. But here's one that I've heard a few students say, is the double major. This idea that, I had my fun major and then I had my get a job major, and I regret that. And I really do believe that we are at Williams teaching students a whole set of ways of thinking, and because we have all this exploration through not just the first 2 years, but throughout, there is not a one-to-one mapping from major to job. And this idea that people have to have 2 majors, one that is associated with whatever the person thinks that they might want to do. So I think some students have looked back and said, it would have been really valuable for me to have 1 major and have even more exploration in the other set of classes I take.
Question about exploration within the field. I'm kind of thinking of economics because it's the only one where I can give you an example, but where economics started looking in psychology and had a different view of how people processed and made decisions. To what extent do you see that happening within your various fields? And how do students respond to that?
Yeah, please, yes.
Okay. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, like interactions between fields and how are students responding to sort of synergies between different ideas. Oh, I think that's happening all the time. I think that students are bringing insights from one area into another quite frequently. Something that I really like about being a faculty member at Williams is that we care a lot as an institution about the teaching that we do, of course, and about faculty research. And so faculty are also doing that same kind of thing. We're all working on our research, learning new insights ourselves. And so as we see our fields moving into new directions, we're on it, and like we're excited about those ideas and bringing that into the classroom. And so I think that it's quite built into the fabric of how we're learning new ideas and discovering new things all of the time. And so it's just constantly evolving.
Yeah, I think one of the exciting things for students coming from high school English to college English is discovering how interdisciplinary English at the college level really is. We're not just reading books and doing analysis of books and maybe bringing a little bit of history, but we're also doing political science and sociology. In my own classes, I do religion and philosophy, and I even bring neuroscience into the work I do. So it's just what you bring what you need to study a phenomenon that's of interest, and that's not usually going to be just a resource as a one discipline, right? It's going to be like everything that's necessary. And yeah, Sarah's right. We do it in our own work, and we model that in the way we teach. And I think what's cool is because Williams is such a small place, in our English classes or econ class or math class, you don't just have econ, math, and English majors, right? You have people who have all these other kinds of courses they've taken, and they bring those to discussion. So it's just really natural. Saying, oh, I'm talking about this in developmental psych the other day, so yeah. Mihai.
Thank you. So I would say, for example, in the mathematics world, as of July 1st of this year, mathematics and statistics are different departments, so that part of mathematics and statistics, so statisticians are very, very keen on applying their research, their work, teaching the students to apply the methods, statistical methods, to their areas of interest. So statistics is growing, and it's its own department, and even within the mathematics department, we have a growing group of applied mathematicians, so there's definite big attention dedicated to applications. And our applied mathematicians collaborate with colleagues in biology, in psychology, so there are points of intersection, and we're aware of the importance of these intersections.
Great. I think we have time for just one more. Here you go.
Thank you all for being here today. Just 3 random ponderings based off of what you shared. One about AI. Looking back sometimes is the answer to looking forward. So 2 of the things that I think of is E.E. Cummings. He had to learn the language first before why can he not have punctuation? So E.E. Cummings. The second thing about time crunch here at Williams, my son is finding that this iWise program that was just launched, which is a PE program that balances wellness and meditation and group things, so it's built into his schedule, so that's been wonderful. And then the last pondering, what Mikhail was sharing about AI and where it's at. I'm an educator myself, and Zoom now can AI your talk. And I did a 2-hour talk, and the AI captured everything amazingly, yet any original thought I had was not in the transcript. And I just found that from a reverse engineering place fascinating. Like, it was spot on for 2 hours of what I shared, except I was like, oh, I can't wait to see the 7 or 8 original thought things, and they weren't there. And I don't know, there's some learning in that, and exactly what you said about it's not good at creating new thoughts. Well, it's not even good at transcribing new thoughts, which I found fascinating. Anyway, the 3 random ponderings.
Wonderful discussion. I don't know about you, but it makes me want to be an undergrad again, listening to these faculty members. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Professor Stoicu, Lagumia, and Rhee.